I am clearly not Rob Beeler. My name is Dana Moon for the people that I do not know in this room and have not been around for the last 15 to 17 to 18 years. I started with Rob back in August, and we have a lot of things coming up for 2023 that we're very excited to do and produce with the publisher community, so I'm more than happy to talk about that after. Rob is very under the weather, which is a place that Rob does not like to be, so hence I'm going to turn this over to Jay, and we're going to start the panel and have the gents come up.
Good stuff. Thank you. Hello. How is everyone? I'm Jay Westland. I should probably try to do one thing at a time here. Founder and CEO of Fastener. Thank you all for coming here today. It's just, there's so much distraction in Vegas to even find your way up to the third floor of wherever we are, and all these buildings are attached together. Anyway, it's just great that you guys all are able to make it out and come spend your morning with us. We've got an exciting topic today, as you can see, on automation. In fact, I don't know if you get the Recode newsletter, but there's a big roundup on that this week. I thought that was a real good one to check out. There's a lot of thanks that we got to give here. I mean, Mediaocean just totally set us up here. Beautiful room. Thank you very much. Thank you. We've got, is Jade around too? I don't know if she's in the room. Anyway. I'll kind of keep going around here. We also want to thank Beeler for partnering with us on this. Unfortunately, Rob's not here. As you know, he's recovering from COVID, and hopefully none of us will take the COVID bomb back to our family. I was feeling a little lightheaded a couple of days ago, but that subsided, so don't feel uncomfortable hugging me and everything. I'm still squeaky clean, I think. Let's see, I want to tell you a little bit about Fastener first before I kind of let the panel come up and start the exciting topic. I founded a company called Fastener 10 years ago. I was always in the publisher space, and I was always trying to sign up publishers to join our networks and trying to find publishers to acquire, and then we would announce that, hey, we launched KimKardashian.com, or we bought Spin.com or Vibe.com, and then all these vendors would attack me, and I'm like, no! And so at the end of the day, I decided to move out of that company and stand up Fastener. That was 10 years ago now. We got 22 people on the team. We got nearly 50 clients. And it's basically a bunch of ad tech companies, pub tech companies, even services groups and such. So we run a monthly retainer with all of our clients. We've got 4 lines of business. It's publisher development, demand development, talent development, which is recruiting, and corporate development, which is our second largest line of work. We do both the buy side and the sell side M&A. I just want to tell you a little bit about publisher development since it's our largest category. We've worked with, everyone around the ad demand side, from, the cafe medias and the media vines to the playwires and she medias. Also companies like, analytics companies like Marfeel, and heck, we've got Jetpack is in the room. I don't know if you see Mark around here anywhere. Mark's over there, jetpack.net. Heck, they became a client of ours probably 8 years ago, and they're live with tons of premium publishers, a Celtra competitor, and Business Insider, and CNN, and a bunch of other companies using that. Let's see what else. I want to mention a couple other clients that are in the room. I know one. Let's talk about who here has an ad operations group in your company, whether you're an ad tech company or whether you're a publisher. Like, raise your hand if you have any ad ops. Okay, well, I see a couple. Now raise your hand a little higher if you like to save money in your ad ops group. And if you don't like to save money, put your hand down. Okay, the people with their hands up, you need to talk to SEPBO, right? Business Process Outsourcing. They've got all sorts of awesome right there. You got to talk to them. They've got all major media companies are working with them, reduce your costs, that sort of stuff. We've got clients, speaking of the category, we've got a brand new client called popquiz.com. It's a very simple way. If you just want to create quizzes, it's a SaaS platform. You go in, put in your topics, and it will just start generating quizzes for you immediately. And it's amazing, a river of kind of selection, and you can really curate the things that are working well. And then, like, let's say you want to bring only your corpus of information into it. Like we do a deal with Vogue, we'll pull in only the Vogue content, and that thing is just going to start spitting out questions with Vogue's actual language and words. And so talk about authentic, right? That's a quiz that's authentic. I think I'm going to try not to check my notes. I'm sure I forgot a bunch of stuff, but I think it's probably best to move along here. I'm going to play the Phil Donahue of this. So if you guys, I'm 54 years old, and so I know who that guy is. And I'm going to run around the audience and try to make sure you guys stay engaged. But we could bring the panel up at this point. Scott Messer is going to moderate for us. Thank you for stepping in for Rob Beeler. In fact, I'll probably let Scott just kind of take it over and bring up the rest of the team. You know, we got Ray Pollock and all the rest. You got your own mic there?
Thank you very much.
You're
nice
all
to
good.
see you, Jay.
You know, and everyone probably knows Scott. He was at Leaf Group for a decade, and probably Demand Media before that was what it's called. You saw that whole thing, so take it away.
Well, I think the joke is it's not big shoes of Rob Beeler to fill, but big jackets. And sparkly ones, too. I don't have a shark suit. Can we do a little horseshoe here? Straight lines on panels are just really my pet peeve. If you want to know what really grinds my gears. Yeah. Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending today. The most important automation panel of CES. Thank you, Jay, for the introduction. Thank you, Media Ocean, for everyone for joining us this morning. Let's go ahead and just jump straight in and do some introductions, and so we get to know everybody, and then we'll introduce the panel and sort of talk to you about what we're going to talk about today beyond just the great word of automation. Let's start down on the end. Jason?
Yeah, Jason White. I'm a founder and president of a company called Jiffy AI. We're a workflow automation platform. So what we do is for buy-side, sell-side ad operations, we have a platform that's an API that sits on top of order management systems, CRM systems, ad serving systems, and has document workflow processing, OCR capabilities that basically automates the order to cash process. So all of those dirty jobs in ad operations, the trafficking, the line mapping, order entry, having to put same information into order management systems, CRM systems, ad servers, we automate all of that process, screenshotting, et cetera. So we've been in creation for about 3 years, and formerly I was at CBS for nearly a decade as well, and ran operations globally for them.
Thank you, Jason. Ray?
All right. I'm Ray Pollock. I am a principal product manager at Yahoo. Fairly new to Yahoo, actually. I'm about 3 months in. Prior to that, I spent 7 years at CNET and 3 years at Future Publishing. And in all of these roles, that's right, yes. And all of these roles have really been focused on commerce content. So especially targeting users who are searching on Google for terms like best laptop, and then having content that's going to rank, and then able to convert them. So I'm happy to speak from the perspective of content publishing on the automation.
Great, thank you. David?
Hey, I'm David Berkowitz. I believe I am the newest member of the Media Ocean Alumni Network, and by all means one of the proudest. And so still supporting the team here, and glad everyone's making it to this event that I've been working with the crew for quite a few months to bring together. So great to actually see this live with real humans in it. So founder of the Serial Marketers community, and so I'll wait to say what I do day to day beyond that once I figure that out. But just been long time agency and tech exec, and thrilled to get to learn from the rest of the people here.
And thank you, David. And Tamika?
I am the deputy MD of SIM, official as of yesterday. The
Congratulations.
Thank you. Coalition for Innovative Media Measurement. We are a pan-industry coalition that's focused on advancing measurement. Right now, focused on TV and video, but you guys know me. Well, you don't, but I want to push us into areas like AR and VR and audio, and sort of measuring all types of media. But before SIM, I worked with a variety of events in our industry, from ad monsters and ad tech and MMS and Mobile World Congress and all that good stuff, and a bunch of ad technology companies like Rubicon Project and Loadme and Ad Colony and all of those things. So I'm an ad tech nerd, basically.
You are in the right room, let me tell you. Also an ad tech nerd, my name is Scott Messer. As Jay said, I was at Leaf Group for 10 years. I've been a publisher for almost 15. I'm in the business of creating and monetizing IP. That's what we do. And right now I have an independent consultancy, so if you need some help, give me a chat and we will talk all about it. But this brings us to our panel today to talk about AI and automation, and we're going to narrow it down and ignore a bunch of stuff. And we're going to talk how it specifically applies to media, content creation, ad operations, and a bunch of stuff. But the big headline, I think when ChatGPT 3 and these products came out in December, and what made it explode was Google is dead, right? And I love that headline. Like, if you know me, that's a super fancy one that I like. But we know that that's not true for a lot of reasons. Let's go back to the history of AI and automation, because we know now that AI doesn't kill industries. The microwave did not kill gourmet food, although some people will kill it in a microwave. But AI is already with us and it helps us. So maybe just a quick thoughts on like, what is AI automation? Where is it? And where has it helped us and not hurt us in the past?
I was going to say Jiffy AI should probably
Yeah,
start.
I mean, I'll jump in. I mean, I kind of go back to the ages of programmatic versus the ad network. Was the ad network, when we were talking about this earlier with Nancy back there, was the ad network dead as soon as programmatic came out? No. Did it make the buying process of targeting your first-party data, third-party data on a publisher's supply easier? Yeah, because before it was operationally a nightmare. When I was at Fox and MySpace, we kind of birthed the RTB revolution because necessity is the mother of all invention, and we were working with all these behavioral ad networks, and they would come to us, and that eventually ended up becoming DSPs. And they would come to us and they would say, you know, that we would actually pay like $10 to $20, $10 to $20 CPM for these users that we're looking for, because they would only fill like 10% of the tag that they would give us, and it was like a 20-cent CPM, and we would yield manage it in our ad server as such. And so they weren't able to get access to the users that they were looking for, which meant we weren't able to fully maximize the revenue opportunity from each one of those partners. So we invented an opportunity to basically call everyone with an impression. They could look at it. If they had information on the user, they could bid on it. And we partnered with Right Media and Yahoo at the time on that. And that kind of changed the game. But I don't ever recall that, like, you know, taking anyone's job or anything like that. It was the existing people that were doing operations and yield optimization just did other things that made us more money and made us smarter, like BI and analytics and sales.
Sure. And then maybe David, from like the buying side, where have you seen AI automation and, you know, in a historical context?
Well, you know, one of the things I'm excited about is that now it's like I feel like everything's being put on the table, because as far as like where some of the potential can be, you know, there's that term, like the adjacent possible, right? Where and it's right where a lot of similar things can get invented at the same time, just because all the other technologies and all the other ideas that need to lead up to that could make all of that happen. And so now we're at this point of the adjacent possible for AI. But for a while it seemed like so much of the focus was very much on things like automating routines, on like optimizing data, and some of that was clear cut. And when I was at Sysomos in 2017, so social listening tech, there was this opportunity to work with the Drum on some first-party research, and I really wanted to get into to marketers' hopes and fears for AI, and specifically look at media versus creative, because at the time, no one was talking about the creative implications, and few people like could wrap their hands. Not like I knew where it was going, or I would have tried inventing OpenAI, but it's like I knew this would be something, right? And it would get there, and it would infect all parts of the business and change all of our jobs. Again, not obliterate all of our jobs, but this is where now all of it can come together, because now you have the opportunity to use AI to create better creative at scale, and then make sure it reaches the right people at scale or on a one-to-one basis, and then all the other pieces that can be automated, like at Sysomos, it was going from Boolean search. I don't know if anyone has had to manage like social search campaigns, but some of these things, like to try to find exactly like the right thing that people are talking about, you'd put in like 50 to 100 terms in these Boolean search strings, like the search strategists back then. It was crazy the amount of work they had to do to fine tune this thing. And now it's like, oh, we're going to proactively go and use AI to figure out the kinds of information you want and allow you to reach those insights sooner. Like Sysomos is now part of Meltwater. Strategists like that, they still have their jobs. They're just not spending all day writing keyword queries. They're actually solving problems.
Can I highlight something that you said?
You may, Jason.
This is exactly, spot on what it is. Because you said something I think is very important. You weren't able to take it to that level. You wanted to take it to that level, but you weren't able to take it to that level because, to be able to work within different creatives, do analytics on that, impossible, and you weren't able to do it. This highlights the fact that it kind of makes us like superheroes, in a sense, because you can amplify, what you're able to output from a production perspective by orders of magnitude. My gosh.
And now you can even use AI to create superhero profile
That's
pics.
right.
And put that in your deck.
We're becoming superhuman.
But I might highlight that. So you're talking about automation of a process or a job. There's AI and machine learning embedded in everything from something like a MediaOcean platform that people use to buy media, to an RTB platform, to a DSP. And so there's this high level of sort of AI and automation, but in half of the tools and systems that we use on a day-to-day basis, GAM, right? Like there's automation embedded within that. And so I think it's just the interface is different now, right? Like it's the everyday person can have an understanding of what AI can do, but it's kind of been embedded in all of our tools for years.
Yeah. So let's take a pause there and sort of unwind this. The three words that I hear there, and their steps in this, is automation, machine learning, and then artificial intelligence, right? And those are three separate topics that are very like interwoven, but they're very different things. And if I could go out on a limb here and help define them for us. Automation is just simply the process of like making something repetitive like happen automatically. Like a car wash is automated, right? But is there AI inside of it? Like, no, not really. But like when they realized like the tire sensor or something, that was probably a really big revolution that helped it.
It's a system.
It's a system
that was created to do a function.
Precisely, and whether it's sort of a dumb system or a smart system is different. And then there's machine learning, which I think is the core of everything that everybody talks about, which is really a system learning Does somebody have a better definition of machine learning than I will?
Well, I think of machine learning as about pattern recognition. And one area where we leverage that as publishers is for related content suggestions. So in fact, what I found is the most powerful recirculation suggestions are using ML to determine the most similar content. So that actually outperforms recency or featured or anything. Automation is the way that I think most publishers have approached dipping their toes in the waters in this space. You mentioned the superpower that allows us to do more than we can. the game in Google is so competitive, especially around high-value evergreen terms or really big news terms, that recency is such a strong signal from Google. Publishers have used these tools to ensure their content is as fresh and up-to-date as possible, but in a kind of a dumb way, right? Because as we're saying, automation is not AI. Now, with ChatGPT, the floodgates are poised to open.
You're plugging in a brain.
Exactly, yes. And how that will play out and what Google's role in that will be is really interesting. But automation so far, I think, is where it's at, and machine learning for publishers, and AI is still to come.
And it's really meant to be like a human in the loop, right? Like you can't, it's not going to brush your teeth, as everybody always says. Programmatic's going to brush your teeth, or clean my shoes. It's
I mean,
not.
Tony Stark was still inside the Iron Man suit, right?
Exactly. And you have to have that human in the loop because it's going to stub its toe. And the reality is AI is kind of like a fifth grader, right? And you're the teacher, and they'll stub their toe and they'll go, "What do you think about this?" And that's pretty good, Sarah, or that's pretty good, Timmy. But like, let's change this, let's change that.
And I think from that you should have some solace in the fact that like machines are not here to take your jobs, because they can't invent things, and we'll talk later. Like they can't do journalistic reporting. And there's a lot of limitations there, and they need humans. So let's talk about the side from like human input into machine learning and automation, and how human plus machine learning equals AI.
Well, this one other story that comes to mind is on one of my last days at MRY, Publicis Agency, now part of formerly known as, because they rolled up a bunch of things, and so David Weinstock, who was the chief creative officer then, I was talking to him, and I think this might have been his last day there, and he was just really bummed out. He's like this really upbeat guy. I was so surprised, and he's like, and he was just seeing a lot of like the race to the bottom of where creative was going, and just like this, like just get the cheapest stuff out there, and just like I guess maybe a lack of appreciation for the craft. And he's like they're like, no one's gonna need me anymore. And I said to him, I'm like you're the one who's needed the most. I'm like, I'm not sure about every last person on your team continuing to do their jobs the same way, but I'm like, you bring the ideas, you bring the experience. Like you're the one that clients want to have a conversation with. Like that's huge. And I think like that just the more of us who can have those intelligent conversations with our customers, the more indispensable we become.
Mm-hmm. What about from like a image creation standpoint?
That's exactly where I was going to go, sort of from a creative standpoint. So like, let's think as a publisher, how many pieces of clip art, that's ancient, but how many pieces of art do you need to create to go with a story on your site, right? And you have a graphic designer, and he or she is and we want to keep them employed, but do they actually want to tweak the client logo multiple times? No, they don't, right? So instead of having them start with a blank slate, maybe it's like, here, Lensa app or whatever, take these two images and give us something to riff off of, so that the client can then say, yeah, we like this, and then you can throw those two pictures in a story, not from an image standpoint, but from a words and text standpoint. There's also like, I don't think that AI is going to replace a good writer, because good writing is hard. But instead of starting from a blank page, there's something to be said for giving this a prompt, having one of your branded content writers, for example, start with a prompt and then get what ChatGPT says, and then give that to the client and see if this is even the direction that they want to go in, and then go from there. So it's like, I like the analogy that you said. It can give you some superpowers as long as you have some sort of guidelines for it.
Can I add? It's really about training, though, right? You've got like basically a little kid here. It's a super smart little kid, but they got to be trained the whole time. So they're going to come up with.
That's the teacher analogy that we're taking. I mean, you got to be there along with it. And then I was going to say also with our hyper app creations, like it starts with human beings. We sit down and we go through 10 sessions with a client of their workflow, your workflow for trafficking, your workflow for line mapping, your workflow for screenshotting. They're the ones that are coming up with that. And in most cases, it's good for them because they haven't documented those processes out. But at the end of the day, if anything needs to be evolved from that, once that application is created, it's not just a one and done kind of a thing. There's new formats that come in terms of insertion order formats from MediaOcean, because this agency has a new format that was an animal that wasn't conceived or thought of when we originally created the automation. And that has to be edited and evolved. Again, that human in the loop is critical.
Although the question I have is, you guys said, and you said human and AI connection. You said we have to teach it. Jay said we have to teach it. We've seen what happens when we let humans teach AIs. I don't know if you guys remember
we
that
get the
bot
Terminator.
Tay, right? Remember that bot Tay?
No mention of the Terminator.
The
here.
Microsoft bot, right? There was an AI bot that was trained on Twitter, and it became hateful and malicious and terrible. And 24 hours, like she and
Almost like they came out of our American school system.
Yes, but that was trained by humans too, right? And so I think you have to be. It's important to set those guardrails of what you're going to train it with.
So then let's dive into. Did you have a?
No, I just keep now hearing Sondheim in my head. You've got to be carefully taught, right?
Yeah.
It's Frankenstein's monster, right? Like who teaches the bot? Who's the creator, right?
Right.
Well, I, on the point of the human in the loop, I would like to note my perspective that for publishers looking to create content for Google, it's particularly important to keep the human in the loop, because Google definitely wants to be in the business of organizing the world's information. They do not want to be in the business of creating original content. Arguably, ChatGPT is organizing information, and if you're just turning up the results from ChatGPT in an article, Google's not going to like that, and they've rung all kinds of alarm bells about that recently, and even over the past year or so, if we look at their helpful content update or some of their product review updates, really emphasizing the importance of hands-on human evaluation of the content that you're putting out there. So essential.
Because it's a real problem for Google, and I think recognizing AI-generated content is incredibly difficult. And the striking example is like, it may be easier to write emails now, but it's harder to catch cheating students, right? And so Google has that same problem, and they want quality information for their consumers, but the idea of like a GPT search engine, which if you go to like you.com is one that's out there now, that's like a real existential threat to Google. And have you guys seen what this is? You can actually, there's a regular search box, and then there's a chat side of it, and you can keep asking iterative questions, and it won't send you to a web page. It will just give you information and answer, the richest celebrity, okay, but only on the West Coast, then, male or female. And you can sort of keep asking the questions. You don't know if you're getting the right information or not. You don't know the source, although now they're providing it. But there's one real thing missing from all of that. Ads. Siri doesn't have ads. Alexa doesn't have ads. Hey Google doesn't really have ads. I think if Google figured out how to put ads into audio, they would be much further along in sort of this generative search, but they don't. And so who needs a search engine when you have a chat engine?
What's Bing's look like? Have you seen that? Because Bing and OpenAI partnered, right? What are they coming up with?
I think they're still building something similar to that.
So I know Google isn't, I know one thing that Google is working on, and that is trying to sort of evolve from being a text-based search engine into a visual one. I don't know if anybody has seen these ads, but it's called Find That Thing. And it's basically trying to get you to get comfortable holding up your phone instead of typing things into search. So I feel like they're sort of going, and I don't think that was a response to ChatGPT. That was a response to TikTok becoming more of a search engine, TikTok and Instagram becoming more of search engines.
That's a different panel.
For the youth, right?
Yeah.
But which it is. But here's this example of Google saying, well, the phone is always in your pocket, right? people are used to holding up their phone now. People are used to their cameras. If we can get them to make this a habit of maybe even not saying, hey, Google, maybe, just holding up your phone and opening up the Google search app, then they will win, or then they'll try to win. I think what could be interesting, though, is could you use AI to figure out how to make ad units in that space? Could you use this technology to could you work with AI to come up with more than standard display ads? Could AI help Google figure out how to insert ads in search? That's an interesting space, I think, of working with the machine to come up with new things.
Well, I mean, I think two notes on Google, one on their past and one on their future. On the past, one thing Google's done exceptionally well, which is one of the reasons they're still here, and is that they've been very good at disrupting themselves, even their cash cow. So when mobile, about 10 years ago, was starting to become a thing, okay, this freaked people out, right? And it should have freaked out Google more than anyone, because even if they had this position of dominance, this meant less screen real estate, fewer ads per page could be shown there, right? So this was actually a radical idea from something when you had those 3 ads up top and then 6 to the right, and then some of these other ad influence listings in the middle. I mean, Google could have more than 10 of these listings. On mobile, you might have room for 1 or 2. And yet they were able to thrive in this environment. Same thing with surfacing more information right at the top of search results. Well, it's that actually shortens the amount of time you need to get to a lot of the information you need. It also means sending less traffic to publishers where they're also monetizing, right? And again, Google's continued to thrive. With where they're going, I think, to your point about some of the things with sources and everything else, yes, now you can go in ChatGPT and say, give me a 30-day meal plan for this kind of diet and regimen and like that. I'll give you all these ideas. Now, I think most people, the natural reaction is, now I want to go to my favorite recipe sites. I want to go to Dr. Mark Hyman and go to his Instagram page to see, does he really recommend this thing versus that, and go way deeper. I think Google is going to be the biggest beneficiary of this, even if they don't figure out how to work it into their own search engine.
I think
who's
that's
the loser?
One of the things is it's important to know source. I don't want to be in a world where you just ask somebody a question and you don't know the source that they're quoting. And this has happened, and we've seen this across this side of the news and this side of the news, and it's over the past 5 years you had to be really careful about what type of news you consume, because you realize you're eating it and you're like, oh my God, this is poison. And so you have to understand source, and I do agree. I think that Google will always have a place there.
But if Google's the biggest beneficiary out of this, who's losing?
Probably publishers.
Ah, yes. So what happens is if
I would maybe push back on that a little bit, because as I mentioned, Google's really been emphasizing to the publisher community the importance of doing hands-on human-created content. And if indeed it's true that this creates more of a market for that content, publishers could be winning as well.
Because the more content you generate, the more money that they're ultimately going to make. It's a symbiotic relationship.
You're talking about sort of their analog search version versus a GPT chat version of search. In the analog version of search, yes, publishers win there, although Google's still increasing the number of zero-click searches and more knowledge panels and more carousels. But from the ChatGPT side, if you don't have to go and visit a web page in order to consume its information, you're not generating an ad for that publisher. You're not even giving them credit necessarily. And then you're going to slowly have the publisher community die off or not want to publish content and not publish it in a free way that can be indexed or accessed by these platforms.
But wouldn't that kill them if they killed off all the content? Eventually, they could have a brain that would remember the old content, but not new content.
Yeah, and this is kind of
zero-sum game.
Like a weird problem. It eats itself.
Are they
never happen because they wouldn't be able to make money.
To the sourcing question, is Google going to kind of devalue stuff that's been written? Jason, what's the name of that company? I don't know if you guys know Jason Green. He works for Fastener. He's here. Thanks for coming out here, Jason. What's the name of that company yeah. originality.ai. Is anyone, like, I don't know how many publishers we have in the room here, but is anyone using something like that? Something
It's like an AI cop that like
Well,
polices
you find
the.
out who
yeah.
wrote that. You know, you find out if a human wrote that or not. And
Yeah, there's
maybe
a
Google
really
could
big company
value.
called Authenticate, and we had them built at Leaf Group. They were built into the studio, so every article that got written and before it got published went through a plagiarism checker. But you can't necessarily find it. Like, was it if it's transformed enough? Like, there's a similarity score, but that doesn't mean that it was plagiarized. If it's summarized, then it can still be an original summary. But it's that source of the content.
It's the verbatim thing.
And who's gonna, and it's like, does it pay to do journalism anymore, right? And what is the value of original reporting versus summarized something? Let's switch gears a little bit and go to like the creative side and some of the limitations. Like, what won't generative AI be able to do for the publishing community and on the creative, whether it's content or images? Or what are some of the challenges that happen when you are getting into generative images?
Well, I mean, I think the same question, there's the same question of, right, if in the ChatGPT sort of search, it pulls up a publisher's content and there's no source, and then that publisher doesn't get the page view or the click or anything. Similar with art, all of the art that these platforms kind of pull from, the artists don't get credit. Sometimes it even pulls in, like there are even examples of it pulling in art with the artist's signature in there and not being able to credit them. And so I think that there's gonna be a lot, and then now I just saw that there's an AI music generator that can sort of scrape songs and sort of put songs together. And so I think another buzzword, I'm not sure if blockchain can help, but I wonder if there's these aspects of blockchain being sort of this record, right? This digital way of recording what has happened or who's the owner of something. I don't know if that's going to be sort of a way for us to validate or verify the original source of some things. But I do think that is going to be a challenge.
It's a good point. It's two worlds colliding, and I think that they do, and I think that's clairvoyant. I think that's spot on. They are going to, the rise of AI-generated content is going to need some police, some cop, someone to hold them accountable. But at the same time, you're going to need to have that other side of it too, which is blockchain, and that could be a real great application for it. We've been sitting around waiting for a real application of it. Now it's here.
Waiting for it to be useful in some way, right? Yeah, I mean, we talked about this on our prep call though, right? Like with the Lensa app, there's this guy on LinkedIn, and he's a creative guy, and he was putting these prompts in, and he did this series of DC
Oh yeah.
what do you call them, superheroes,
Yeah.
right, reimagined in an 80s dive bar. And the pictures are amazing. It's like Harley Quinn looks like she's about to make some bad decisions, Mr. Free, and it's like, that's cool, right? But here's the question. So if I like this guy's sort of picture of Harley Quinn, I want to pay him for it. Let's say I actually put that on my blog post. Mm-hmm. Is DC gonna come at me with a takedown because it's a remix of a DC character, or are they gonna go to the guy who made it? Are they gonna how does
Copyright
that
infringement.
happen?
Yeah, there's some sides of like the fair use and like transformative like works property that gets you free of that, but then they're also like, well, that's still our superhero, and that's our.
And we don't want Harley Quinn to be looking like she's making those decisions.
It's kind of
right?
like when you do a parody, like in a commercial world, like you do a parody of a song or a parody of some IP, and you're able to get away with that because it's a parody, right? Like, the law is not that restrictive to say, no, you can't make fun of something because you're going to get sued by it. So maybe they'll take some of those laws and apply it to that. I don't know.
Well, what if so when you were at Leaf Group, for example, what if someone wanted to take your logo and like spin it into something, and they put it in AI and then they put it on their site? Like, would you guys be able to say, this is our logo, it's not iterative, you're not sort of, this is not a fair use thing? And then who polices that? Is it the DCMA people?
Terms
Is
of service, probably. Like if you go out and do something with another logo, like that example, probably not good. But if the head of marketing put the logo in a Lensa app, the terms of service says that they can do whatever the heck they want to with that, and they can put that and use that to train their AI, but also in other artwork. So I think it gets into the legal component of it.
But then as a publisher, how do you as a publisher then, this comes back to the creative question, how do you as a publisher then protect yourself, right? Like if you hire a freelance graphic designer who makes something and doesn't tell you that they took it from
They cribbed it from a source.
Right. How do you protect yourself as a publisher?
You make them sign that piece of paper that says that you're giving me original work and that you're responsible for it. I'm not a lawyer, but that's what you should do.
I think there's a really fascinating point here. So the example you brought up about DC is arguably clear infringement that DC is intellectual, the characters are intellectual property. But what about an illustrator's style? And I think there's been a lot of impact here where you're doing creative, you might hire a specific illustrator, but now you can just ask the DALL to give you an image in that illustrator style. Now, for humans, it's totally allowed. You can look at another artist's body of work and do something in a similar style, but should it be allowed in this context? The fascinating legal question is the training. As a human, I'm allowed to look at something and think about it and integrate it into my work, but are we allowed to use this artist's work to train the model so that we can get similar style?
And that leads right into like bias in training, right? So not just the source of the training, but like unintended biases, real bias. And you know, this goes all the way into like the medical profession. Like this isn't just happening in ed tech, it's everywhere.
Oh, and we have it on the human side too. So if we have it on the human side, like block lists, you know.
Yeah, bad data in, bad data out. Like if humans are feeding the machine, you know that data's biased.
That's right.
We're gonna take an intermission here, and I'm gonna ask the question of when you interact with AI or generative platforms, are you polite to it, and do you say thank you, like Siri and Alexa?
I do thank Alexa on
I do too.
a regular
I think
basis.
Google.
Yeah.
Crowd, put your hands up if you thank them.
I thank Siri, but Siri never says you're welcome.
They never
I'm
say
sorry.
back, yeah. I want them to start saying, you're welcome.
I just think they're keeping score, and like that's a really easy bet to hedge. Like
And
How screwed
actually,
we
what-
are as a society, as
you know,
civilization.
there was something I was doing actually just the other day. Also just bring up like totally different kind of use case because my girlfriend's working at this school that's focused on social emotional learning and the arts, and so I was looking into using ChatGPT to help brainstorm ideas for some of the content that we're creating, and so as I was spending actually quite a while having this conversation and like unpacking some of these ideas, I did catch myself saying like that was a really good idea. Now, can you expand on this further? And it's almost like I wanted to give it that encouragement to give me
going.
more like
You
that.
got
right?
this.
like you want to work for me, right? Please, like give me the best stuff. Yeah.
Then maybe it's not thank you. Then it's just like, you're doing great.
Well, I mean, this is a slightly out on a limb question, right? But or a thought process, right? But like at a certain point, the AI is going to get smarter and smarter. I don't know if do you guys remember that movie Her?
oh yeah.
Yeah,
Right?
it's a
When
great movie.
He fell in love with his OS, right? These machines are our tools, and they do have intimate access to our lives in some levels, right? Are you nice? If you have an assistant, are you nice to your assistant? Like, do you treat your assistant like shit? If so, well then you're a bad person. But like, should we? I think we should be nice to our AI robots because it's sort of, I don't know. I feel like maybe
Because we
Grow
also
a
saw
conscience,
iRobot.
right. you know?
But it's also like if you're out, like if you're out on a date or something or a business lunch, then you see how nice people are to the staff at the restaurant, and that can make a really big impression on you. I mean, and same thing even for things like with voice conversations, or when I'm doing things with like whether it's like DALL or ChatGPT with my 8-year-old, and we're exploring some of these things. Then I also want to make sure that I'm modeling good behavior, right? Like I want her to say thank you to anyone and everyone. So yeah, I don't want to necessarily distinguish between thanking something human or not. Like, let's just create a general rule, right? Like, we're just gonna say thank you when we are appreciative for something.
It's a very deep existential question. Is thank you for the other person, or is thank you for you to feel better that you've given gratitude across that? Let's close out with what do you think is most exciting or terrifying in AI? Like, what's the biggest thing on your brain? Where are you most excited or super terrified that we wind up? I'll give everyone a moment to think about that. Okay, now you've thought about it.
Well, there's no question. I mean, we talked about the potential that this will entirely upend and disrupt the publishing industry. And certainly that could happen. I think my thesis is Google has a very vested interest in keeping things more or less the way they are, and publishers can draft under Google on that. But they may not be able to stop that from happening, and we could see the entire world turn upside down. So that is what is most troubling to me. What is most exciting to me is this idea of superpowers, how we can all maximize our output by learning how to integrate with these AIs to take that thought starter that they give us, the outline, the sketch, and then turn it into better, greater work than we would be able to do otherwise.
100%. I mean,
how are you currently integrating? You using internal design? Like I've got Majestic Apps over here is in the room. They build and design stuff. They're out in New York City. They built Audio Mac. There's 20. I don't know if you guys have listened to Audio Mac's awesome, right? 20 million users a month. But they build chat and come in. And are you doing that already inside of Yahoo? Or you're already looking at all the systems out there and integrating? Or do you feel like you're specialist enough?
We have a way to go still on integrating these technologies into our content creation processes. We've dipped our toes in like the automated summary articles. Haven't seen great success with that and have sunset it. But this concept that I'm talking about where ChatGPT can give you the bullet points, but then you got to do your fact checking and flesh those bullet points out in a way that makes sense. And from an art perspective as well, hey, comp me up a couple of these ideas and then I'll take it from there. That is what I see as the biggest potential, and we're not there yet.
Yeah, for me, it was what I was going to say is it's taking the proof is already in the pudding. Like, it's taking a multi-million-dollar, let's use ad operations as an example, real AI that's out there now, a multi-million-dollar operations group that's outsourcing, to India. That's not ideal. It doesn't create a lot of efficiencies. There's a time delay. There's human errors constantly, and being able to give, clients like ours at Kinesso, 97% efficiency. We're about to put out a case study on that. That's meaningful because then they can take, the 200 people that they outsourced to India down to, 30, and then they could take the money that they saved and throw that into their business to create better content, i.e. creative for their clients, and, better analytics, i.e. outcomes for their clients, and so on and so forth. Again, that superhero analogy.
I think that I'm most excited about the kind of the democratization of creativity for people. Like on IG, I started following, I just started following a lot of these Black artists that are doing Black futurism, and they're using AI to come up with these amazing visions of the future for Black people, and I'm like, that's amazing. On the flip side of that, I am super concerned about AI in its various forms being embedded in systems and the bias that is inherent in that without knowing, right? Like it's not that we can't use AI. It's not that AI should not be used. It's not that it's not useful. It's not that we can prevent the bias. But I think, so in a terrible example, a gentleman, a Black man in Louisiana got misrecognized by a facial recognition and went and got taken to jail for 4 days before they were like, oh, wrong guy, right? And so it's like, but it wasn't until after it came out that it was facial recognition technology that found him, right? And so it's this example of AI being embedded in things that we don't know that is the terrifying thing to me. It's
And
like,
that-
yeah. Go
And
ahead.
that's the bias part too, right? Before we were talking about there's bias in training.
Yeah.
But there's bias in the corpus of whatever's been ingested. And if white men have been writing everything since the beginning of time, in vast majority, there's not going to be as much
Which
diversity.
it's going to learn off of that, which we're trying to change right now in our world, but it's going to learn off of the historical stuff that we're actively trying to change. So
And again,
you're right.
I'm not saying that we can change bias, right? Because it's part of where it is. I'm not saying we shouldn't use AI. The thing that I'm concerned about is when we don't know that AI is making the decision. That's my concern.
Who watches the Watchmen?
Yeah, we pretty much got the call time here, the buzzer.
Well,
Going, so-
final
Yeah, we're
thoughts?
up.
Well, yeah. I mean, for me, I'd say it basically comes down to there's one of the products launched here during CES was an oven. I don't know if it's LG or I can't keep track of anything not in the ad industry at this show, but that will automatically recognize the food that you put in the oven and like do the optimal cook times, and already has like 80 kinds of food it can recognize and all that. And like my daughter, she's 8. She wants to be a chef. She loves cooking. It's my favorite thing to do with her. So like what I'm most scared about really is that like she won't know what a burnt chocolate chip cookie tastes like and won't know the difference between that and like just nailing it and making like the best one you've ever had, even if it's from the recipe on the back of a Toll House bag. On the flip side, it's like, you know, I think that we'll also have those reminders of and forms of appreciation for what does make us human, what does keep things real, but we might have to work a little bit harder to infuse those moments into our lives.
I knew someone was going to get cookies into this conversation. That's all the time we have. Thank you very much to the panel, Jason, Ray, David, Tamika, and I'm Scott. And to Jay and the Media Ocean team, thank you very much, everybody. Have yourselves a great rest of your day.
Yeah, and also I wanted to pull in Tony Winders here. If you guys know Tony from the Winders Group, he's a client of ours as well. Does all our marketing. If you guys ever see any of the social posts that we're doing, our website completely redone by him. Also, Jetpack's website, other stuff. Anyway, just wanted to make sure. Say again. Yeah. Yep. Any final questions from the audience? I know we didn't have enough time for Q&A, but we good? All right.
Thanks, guys.
so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. All right.